Hello, and welcome to the Angry Ewok channel. Today, this will be part 2 of a series of videos aimed at trying to teach people to counter the Onager. In today's video, the biggest thing we're going to focus on is how to approach the ship. We're not going to go over a whole lot of list tech. This is purely flying and trying to approach it with taking as little damage on the way in as possible, and then trying to prevent it from escaping. Onagers have impressive long-range firepower, and so we don't want to let it shoot us for multiple rounds. We also don't want it to be able to hit small ships if we can help it, because it has the potential to one-shot it. Everything in Armada has a time clock. There are 6 turns, you get 6 chances to shoot, 6 chances to move. It's important that it not get to shoot things that it can one-shot, because that immediately gives it points. Anything that it has to shoot twice, that's a third of the game it spent its time trying to kill. You're minimizing the amount of damage it can do. So, what we're going to try to do today is we're going to try to fly, show you how to fly in such a way that you can kind of make the enemy pick one ship or the other and then punish him for it. Also, if you have some agency over what he's going to shoot you with, you can be prepared and start shunting shields there, doing repair commands, doing projection experts, any kind of things that you can do to try to keep that ship alive longer. So, in this example, we're going to have an Onager facing off against a Gar fleet. We're not going to have the rest of the fleet there because we want to limit this to just the variable of where the Onager is. Now, at deployment, typically the Onager is going to be the last deployment that the Imperial player will make. And the reason for that is he wants to line up a good shot. He wants to keep you, he holds you in jeopardy of potentially getting hit with that cataclysm shot. And he wants as much information about where his targets are going to be as possible. So, you need to count activations from the beginning. You need to see, okay, well, I'm first player or I'm second player. He's got this many activations. He's got that many activations. And you need to determine, is he going to get the last drop? Is he going to be able to put his Onager down after everything's gone, for one thing? Also, you're going to need to determine, well, how many drops, if I have more drops than him, how many more drops am I going to get to drop? 1 ship, 2 ships? Because that'll inform your decisions on how you're going to be able to deploy against this thing. Once it goes down, you need to immediately look at its arc lines. And these arc lines will tell you what you can do with it. My suggestion is that you put ships that you have in reserve that are yet to go down outside these lines. Obviously, it's not a big thing, but what we're going to try to do here is we're going to try to fly our fleet still in a cohesive unit, still where they can overlap their fields of fire, still where they can support one another. That supporting distance that we've talked about, where 2 elements can mutually support one another if they come under fire. We want to maintain that as we close, but we also want to make this Onager make a decision about where it's going to turn its head. Obviously, the thing that we're going to go in the middle with is going to be our toughest ship. The ship that we think is most equipped to take on and deal with the damage an Onager can put out. Things that are less tough, like the Charger, need to be farther and farther out away from this cone so that it has to commit more of it, have to turn more to try to get its guns on it. And what we're trying to create a situation is that when the Onager turns one direction, it doesn't have the time to turn back and get its guns on the rest of our fleet because we're rushing it quickly and trying to jam it. This acclimator is pretty tough. We want it to be as close to that white line as possible, and the reason for that is that if this Onager were to choose to go away from this acclimator, it's going to struggle and have to go to full speed and do as much navving as it can to get its guns on the Onager. So the farther out we put it, the harder that job is going to be. So you can kind of see the blue lines of where I would probably try to close and approach here. Again, looking at activations, if I, as the Grand Army of the Republic player, had the last activation, in this scenario, my last activation would be the Venator. And the reason is, I don't want to give away a red range shot. It's not real rocket science. The more I know about it, the better I'll be able to line that shot up. But if I don't have the activation advantage, if the Onager is going to go last anyway, and I'm going to fly into red range, it would actually be my first activation. And the reason for that is because I'm not going to give away any new information. If I'm going to take a red range shot either way, just move ahead. Don't drop yourself into black range of the ignition token, and you functionally haven't lost anything, and you can delay and hopefully protect your smaller ships or your ships on the wings, because what you want to know is you want to wait until it commits to a direction, and the ships on the opposite side need to collapse down. The ships on the side that it's committing to need to become evasive and try to get out of the arc as fast as they can, or do whatever kind of defensive tech that they can do. I mean, you can see it's probably going to go at the charger, stay in the middle on the Venator, or turn towards the acclimator. That's pretty much the three options. And if you can, with the acclimator, if obviously you want to always close outside of black range. That's pretty standard. But again, stressing that we are trying very, very hard to limit the number of times that it gets to shoot that ignition weapon. That starts on turn 1 at deployment, trying to keep it from shooting you. Once it picks a direction, the two ships that are not being threatened need to become aggressive. They need to close in. We need to create a kill box, and you can see this big white circle. We need to put every gun we've got into that circle, and just know that a lot of times an Onager player will increase from 1 to 3 with a dial and a token and try to get out of there. He'll probably try to take one of these two yellow paths. I would not risk trying to jump over a medium base like an acclimator straight over the top, especially if that acclimator is kind of canted at me, so I'm having to jump from like his front right corner to his back left corner. That's a lot of distance to clear with a large base. He will probably try to go down through your fleet like the yellow line says, or away from your fleet and run away from it, specifically if he's got first player. So your job is to make it so painful to do that he can't survive it. And so we're creating that kill box, and just know that your Venator is going to need a nav command here on turn 2 to commit to the proper direction to try to keep that shot. Your charger is going to need a navigate command here to try to keep its guns on. And this acclimator, it's probably not going to need that. It's going to want repair commands here. It's going to want to be trying to tank that damage because it is the target that's been chosen to get shot at. Now, it's command 3. You didn't know if it was going to go right or left, so you can't do much about that. But any kind of ways of feeding tokens like Bail Organa, repair tokens, anything you can do to keep it alive, do it, because it's going to become the sacrificial punching bag for this Onager, and you're just trying to do some damage with that ship and get away without dying. More often, I see the Onager deployed in the corner, and the reason for that is it denies one flank. It's a lot harder for people to come swirling in from two directions and capture this thing. What it does also, though, is it does make it harder for the Onager to get away, because it only has a half of a board to escape into, if that makes sense, at the beginning of the game. So you see the same kind of deployment. We got our umbrella. If you extended that line out, you're not gonna. None of these are at threat right now. We're gonna try to activate that acclimator last, because we don't want to give away a shot. And you'll notice this little charger in the corner. So he's deployed as far to the right as I can, and he's not good at taking an Onager shot, but he's not a decent. He's a pretty decent little shooter. So what we're going to do is, I typically like to put a fast-moving small ship in this scenario into this pocket. And the reason for that is, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to scoot up the short side of the board. I'm going to try to get far enough up the board that if this Onager wants to participate and shoot that guy, he's going to have to turn his big cannon back towards his own towards the short board edge. And that's going to basically take him away from the fight, shooting at the Venator and the acclimator. So because typically that charger lives in fear of dying to a single Onager shot. It happens a lot of the times, because usually you can get a spike of 9 damage, and then that'll wipe out a charger with no problems. But he's a little safer here because of the position, because if that Onager decides to throw his nose into the corner, he's pretty much giving up a chance to shoot at the other two for at least another turn to try to get his head back around. Now, that being said, this charger needs to go wide. You see how I did a click at the first joint, second joint, third joint, fourth joint, with a nav dial with speed 4. I got as far out towards that short edge as I possibly could, and the reason for that is because I want that onager to have to turn a lot. It would be a failing of mine if the onager could simply come down the board, point straight at my long edge, and get his guns on both the charger and the acclimator. If I flew so tight that he could threaten those two ships, if he's got a good shot on the charger and his charger doesn't move, he might just kill it and keep on moving, and then he's only turned his head a little bit towards that short edge, and then he's going to get to deliver subsequent shots to my fleet the next turn. That charger needs to be way out there to make it so unappealing that he either won't get shot at, or if the onager does turn to shoot at him, the rest of my fleet can collapse down on him. Alright, so once all my ships have moved, we're going to try to stay short of black range if we can wait out the onager with the acclimator, and they're all coming pretty quickly so that they'll be able to be on or past his arc in the next turn if we can. And you'll see the arc line from the onager here. If he decides to go to the left, I think this is probably what he would typically do, because he doesn't really want to go towards the short edge and get jammed up. He wants to be able to turn out to the right and kind of escape along his long board edge. Right here at speed 1, he's probably trying to slow up and not give up a shots this turn. Hopefully that puts him short of the Venator, but the Venator is going to be the defensive ship in this case. It's going to be the ship that we're trying to run a bunch of repair commands to, trying to push repair tokens to, things that if we want to position ourselves with that Venator in the flight path of this onager with our front right corner and our back left corner caddy corner to make it really hard for him to jump over the ship and clear. And his job is to basically stick his nose in there, try to deliver one double arc, hopefully take a shot in return and survive and leave the arc, if possible. That's kind of his role here. The other two ships have to become aggressive and try to participate as much as they can. At this point, our little charger is going to do as much of a turn back to the left as he possibly can. That's the reason he was out here. The reason he was out here was because he's a high mobility ship that can turn in if and when the onager turns away from him. So he's going to swoop in as much as he can. He's going to get as close as he can, because we expect this onager to try to tail out and get away from him. So you're probably going to, especially if he has to go before the onager, the onager's probably going to get to move now, and then if the onager has first player, move again. So you got to get so close to him that you're probably going to get a second shot. But he laid his arc line in as good as he can. He's right there. If the onager moves forward at least speed 1, he'll have a double arc lined up at blue range. And that's really all you can ask of that little guy. And he's also in a good place to continue curling her back to the left and continuing the fight against the onager. The Venator is going to move in, trying to set himself up so he can deliver a double arc when the onager moves forward as best he can. The acclimator is going to swoop in again, anticipating the onager either turning out along the long board edge or trying to split between the Venator and the acclimator, though that would be a very bad place to go as an onager, because you're probably, if you come up short and don't clear the front arc, so these two ships are eating 4 arcs, which is at black range, which is probably a dead onager, not necessarily, but it's very damaging. He could take either of those two yellow paths. Neither one of them's appealing, but he'll probably take the one to the right and try to sit down in just the front of the acclimator and just the front of the Venator. You got to anticipate that. Your two red ships circled in red have to become aggressive. They need navigate commands. They need to be doing everything they can to get on this onager, because chasing in Armada is hard, especially against a first player ship. But trying to do damage when you are chasing the other person in an I go you go scenario is very difficult, and you don't want to do that. You need to keep them in front of you. But at the end of the day, what you set up is 3 overlapping fields of fire at close range. No matter where this onager goes, it's going to eat at least 3, but hopefully 4, 5, or 6 shots from your fleet, and it goes down. So in this perfect, well scrubbed scenario, what's happening is you're taking a long range shot from an Onager on turn 2. Your chosen, hopefully defensive ship is suffering a massive hit on turn 3, and then hopefully moving and escaping, and then you're putting everything you have on this Onager, hopefully putting it down. So functionally the Onager shot you once at long range, once at short range, and then it died. If it's got first player, it's very likely that it'll shoot you once at long range, once at short range, and then it'll be the first activation. It's probably on fire, hopefully, but it'll be the first activation. It'll shoot, kill something, and then it'll die. And the subsequent shot is the calculus here. That being said, if you can for some reason get it to switch targets by jamming that acclimator in there so tight that it can't escape otherwise, it may shoot the acclimator. If you can get it so you want it to try to have to take bad shots, switch targets, and shoot red range shots, and you want to make sure that you cut off its escape route by wheeling the unthreatened ships in there as tight as you can and trying to crowd this thing out and silence it quickly. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I know this video has been a while coming. Holidays have been tough. Not tough, but just busy. And Vassal World Cup is about to kick off, so I've been doing a lot of practicing and things like that. So maybe a longer delay than I would have liked in this video. But I hope you guys are enjoying it. Keep playing Armada and have a good day.